What is going on, guys? Jack here, and welcome to episode 112 of The Rise to Glory, here with Gibraltar Apex, and today we have the start of Season 16. You will notice the date in the top right is the 18th of September. That can only mean one thing: we are going to be kicking off this year with the group stage immediately. Last year, of course, we did the kind of final playoff game. This year I decided not to do it. We got drawn against Dynamo, of course, a team who we've met so many times in this save. We beat Zagreb very comfortably in the end, 8-4 on aggregate. It was fairly standard, I guess you could say. You can see here, we actually joined the competition in the third qualifying stage. That is as a result of the coefficient rising. And yeah, things have gone pretty well. You can also see we won the Pepe Reyes Cup, and today we're going to be kicking off with a live comm against Zenit St. Petersburg. Also in our group we have Feyenoord, Juventus, and yeah, of course, Walter del Sol, Juve. Going to be an interesting situation to deal with in a few episodes' time. Either way, we'll start with the transfers, get the interesting stuff immediately out there, and well, you might be able to see my transfer budget's £30 million. Why have you got so much money, Jack? Why has it not been spent? Let's have a look at the transfer history. Boom. £53 million made. Not bad. Not bad. Where did the money come from? Well, let's take a look at this. And Christian Mendes has gone to Arsenal for £35 million. An absolutely ludicrous sum of money. I mean, I sold him immediately. I wasn't really planning on selling Mendes, and then Norwich came in with a bid, and I think the bid was £15 million. And I looked around, and I couldn't find any replacement right midfielder, so I rejected that offer, and I kind of sat thinking I might regret that down the line, because although I couldn't sign an immediate right mid to get £15 million and then potentially reinvest it down the line in that right midfielder we need, you know, it might have been worth it. So I was kind of a little bit unsure, and then Arsenal came a knocking in. They originally offered £20 million. I kind of counter-offered with £40 million out of tongue-in-cheek. They then said 28. Eventually, we negotiated down to £35 million, all up front, and big and, we get 50% of whatever he sold for next time. Now, that's not the profit he sold for. Whatever transfer sum Arsenal receive, we get half of that. And I think that is an absolutely ridiculous bit of business. Christian Mendes, the Colombian, an absolutely superb player, but 22 years old. I don't think he's a £35 million player. I can only assume they've signed him based off his form. The fact he's a very young player, the fact that perhaps he has a little bit of potential, which our kind of staff just didn't see in him. But nevertheless, delighted to get that for him. You can see he's now worth £17.5 million, and he's actually currently out with strained knee ligaments for a few months. So I think we got the good end of the deal there. Anyway, a few more sales to let you guys know about. The first one here, Daniel Martinez, player who I mentioned we might look to sell. I actually sold him prior to Mendes by a few days, and I kind of wish I'd kept hold of him because he would have been the ideal right midfielder for us. Of course, I mentioned at the end of last episode that I was contemplating selling him if we could get a decent sum of money. To be fair, £9 million for him, not a terrible sum. You can see he played 10 games for us last year in the league, and he also made a few appearances in continental competitions on off the bench. Of course, he was really kept out of the squad by Christian Mendes, so in selling both of these guys, we have left ourselves a little bit of a hole in the squad at right midfielder. I have attempted to patch that up, although as I alluded to a little bit earlier, it has proven a little bit trickier than I would have liked. Anyway, the next sell we have Yam Dijk. Decided to let him go. His contract was running out at the end of next year. We had a few teams interested in him. Hertha Berlin were interested. They came a knock-in. We got £5 million for him. I think that's a fairly good fee. He's definitely a good striker, but as you guys will see, we've got a lot of good strikers now in the squad. I feel like we've got players better than him. I feel like it's a good bit of business to get £5 million for a 27-year-old. And yeah, some good progress. Anyway, two more sales just to cover real quickly. The first one here, Nigel Howell, going to Norwich City for £3.4 million. I think that's a fairly good kind of return on a player we brought in on a free at the start of last year. Good to get a bit of money for him. He was a very good player for us, as you can see. Played kind of second and behind Paul Smith. But we do have a few good young left midfielders who I feel like make for better backups and will benefit more from first-team football. Nigel Howell's contract was coming to an end at the end of the year as well. So to get £3.4 million, kind of happy about that. The last big major sale you can see here, Juan Carlos going to Levante for £1 million. Good little fee to get. Again, his contract was running out at the end of the year. He's an okay striker, never really had that impact that I thought he might have. He came in very much as a backup and in the end only lose £100,000 over 2 seasons that he served at the club. I don't think that's too bad or a bit of business. Anyway, on to the ins. You can see we spent £12.58 million. Let's start with the first one here. Alex Bassong. I'm just going to call him Bassong. He's a bit like Sebastian Bassong. He's like the regen version. He looks like a very good player. His pace lets him down. He has a little bit of room to improve. He's only 18 years old, going to be in our reserves. I'm hoping he can do something for us, although he joined us on a really cheap fee. Went through my standard regen hunting methods of going through, all the various national teams. He was a player who kind of got brought to my attention when I was going through the kind of Cameroon under-21 squad. And going to hopefully be a good addition to the side. Either way, the next player we have in a player you guys already knew was joining, Bartłomiej Helik. We'll call you Helik just to keep things simple. Polish, 28 years old, a good striker. You can see he's a really experienced international. Not got that many goals on the international stage, but 19 finishing, 16 composure, 17 off the ball. He's not particularly slow. He's not explosively fast, but he's competent in the air. He's got good speed. I love his finishing. I'm hoping he's going to be a good striker for us this year. You can see he's got 5 goals already in the Champions League for us, so proving to be hopefully a good bit of business. Anyway, the next player we have Gianluca Rota, a player who I'd been looking at for a little while. He was playing for the Football Federation of Centre of Excellence. You know the team in Australia. I've signed a few players from them in the past. I eyed him up. I decided not to go for him, and then he got released by them, and then I kind of thought, well, let's just take a punt on him, really. So he's come in. He looks like an okay player. He's 18. You can see he's capped at Italy's under-19 level. And who knows, maybe he could develop into something a little bit useful, and even if he doesn't really develop too much, hopefully we can sell him on for a little bit of money. Anyway, the next player we have, actually the most expensive player of the transfer window, Cesar Fialos. You can see here, Ecuadorian, 19 years old, just a very good left midfielder. You'll notice his determination is dropping. The reason for that is he's currently being tutored by Paul Smith, who has a lower determination than he currently has, but I'm hoping he's going to pick up some of Paul Smith's player-preferred moves. But no, he looks like a very good left midfielder. One of the players who, as I kind of alluded to, could be a very good fit at left wing as a backup option, particularly with Howell leaving for Norwich. I think this guy will benefit from first team football, has some really, really nice physicals. I'm hoping he's going to be able to contribute a lot to the team when he's called upon, and, well, he's already got an international cap as well. So it looks like he could be a very useful player for us, certainly. Anyway, the next player we have is Yam Razz. Now, this guy's actually a loanee we've loaned in from Liverpool. Hopefully, he can be a good player for us, the Slovakian. Reason I brought him in, very versatile player, can play at right midfield as well. He's similar to Martinez, who we sold in a lot of ways. He's not got the same pace. He's a very well-rounded individual, though, and I think he will suit that kind of wide midfielder role for us quite a lot. Anyway, the next player we have here is ELMO. Now, no, it's not the red furry guy from Sesame Street. It's a Brazilian giant. It looks like a very good player for us. 21 years old. You may have noticed we've got him for really, really cheap. We signed him from Olympia. The reason we got him so cheap was because his contract was running out in January. So I approached to sign him, then did the buy now option. 21 years old, this guy. I think he's going to be a very, very good kind of big target man for us. He's a similar player in a lot of ways to Helik. However, I think Elmo, he's not quite as athletic in terms of his pace, but he looks like he could be a good player. Can also play centre attacking mid that I like. He's 21 years old and his wage is quite large, but I felt like with the departure of Mendes and with a fairly bloated transfer budget as a result, I could justify, perhaps splurging a little bit more on wages than I'd otherwise like to. I think he'll be a good player for us. I'm hoping he's going to get some goals when we call upon him. Did join us with a little bit of an injury, perhaps something to keep an eye on. If we look at his report here, you can see consistency might be a problem, but he might have some room to improve. He's a good player. He can use both feet. He's been in some good form. And I think his sheer aerial presence is going to suit us a lot. Anyway, the next player we have in, actually the third most expensive transfer we made, and one of 3 youngsters who we signed as perhaps a little bit of a punt towards the end of the transfer window, and it's this guy, Masaya Ono. Now, he's a Japanese player, and if you don't know, I have a soft spot for the Japan national football team, which may or may not have influenced my decision somewhat, but this guy looks good. 18, good athletic kind of ability. When I actually scouted him, his potential was a little bit higher, so I'm hoping that because he's just joined the club, and of course this is my assistant's opinions, that my scouts were correct and my assistant was wrong. You can see 8 pros, 5 cons. He's 18 years old though, playing for the Japan national team. Looks like a good player, not great in the air, but that doesn't bother me too much as a right midfielder. He handles himself well in a professional manner. good explosive pace. And yeah, hopefully with some first team experience at international level and also frequently playing in our reserves, he'll develop over the next few years into a real kind of useful player to have in the right midfield position. Anyway, the next player we have is Jason Meza. This guy, a Colombian international, 19 years old. A very similar player to players we've signed over the last few years, really. We've had this weird little bit of a link, I guess, to the likes of Colombia, Paraguay, Uruguay, whereby we've tried to go to their clubs, their top clubs, and try and sign some of their best players. You know, look at their national teams, because the lesser kind of South American nations players feel quite happy coming to us. I tried to sign some Argentines and some Brazilians in the summer this year. They weren't interested in talking to us. Jason Meza ended up being the player I elected to go for. Was just looking for really a backup of all backup strikers. I think this guy's going to do the job. Joins us for £1.4 million. You can see he's got a reasonable goal scoring record for a player of such a young age. But at 19 years old, he looks like he could be a good little player. Similar in a lot of ways to a few other players we have in the squad. Perhaps the most concerning thing for him is going to be his 8 finishing and his real lack of technicals. Although, that said, he's a very mentally kind of switched on player. Looks like he's a very intelligent footballer. And those technicals, you know, they are the easiest thing to improve in a player like this guy. So hopefully with some good training, he can improve. I think he's got a lot to offer us long term. And yeah, we'll have to see how he develops over the next few years. Anyway, the last player we have is Jose Luis Salas. He joined us from America, the Mexican team. I've probably pronounced that horrifically. But you can see here, he played a few times for their second team. We signed him for £3.3 million, which is quite a lot. But as I kind of alluded to earlier with the Ono signing, I kind of feel like with the Mendes sale, I could justify spending a little bit more than I otherwise would like to on players. This guy, though, 19 years old, a Mexican under-20 international, a player who actually was flagged to me by one of my scouts scouting out North America. He looks like he's going to be a good player for us. Yeah, not really a first-team player immediately, but at 19, room to improve. And yeah, if we need to call upon him, I think he's more than adequate to slot in at that left-back position. So those are the transfers. Quite a lot on the ins, not so many on the outs, just a few big players really on the outs, 5 major sales. You'll notice that we have a lot of money left over, and well, if we look at our bank balance here, you can see that we currently sit with £53 million in the bank, a transfer budget of £28 million remaining, and a wage budget of £736,000 a week. Bear in mind, at the moment, we're only spending just over £400,000, so a lot of money there. At the end of last episode, I think it was towards the end of last episode, I talked about the fact that the club chairman was a little bit unhappy and might be moving on. We have had a change in hands over the summer. You'll see that we are now financially rich. That is as a result of that sale that we already had. The club value has shot up to £65 million. And, well, if we look at the landmarks here, you can see that Daniel Langtry has taken over. He's a local businessman. He's not been too hands-on since taking over the club, really. The only impact that the kind of takeover at the club has had on me has been the fact we had a transfer embargo for a little bit during the summer period, which is a little bit annoying to deal with. But I'm glad that the new chairman seems fairly happy with me at the helm. He actually gave me a new contract. So if we look at my profile here, you can see my contract currently runs out in 4 years' time, which is the longest contract they could offer me. I was pretty happy about that, and yeah, good to see that despite that perhaps a little bit of turmoil in the boardroom, we've come out of it relatively unscathed, and it doesn't look like it's going to affect us too much in our day-to-day running of the club. Either way, what else has been going on? Well, I brushed over our qualifying a little bit. I feel like the Zagreb game deserves a little bit more attention. Looking at it here, we won the first leg away from home 3-1. Mustafa getting a goal, and actually he got another goal, which was his first ever goal for Egypt fairly recently. Thought that was quite amusing that a player who's got 40 caps at the age of 21 only has that one goal at international level. But it was apparently a good goal, according to the press who hailed it and said it was a bit of a wonder goal for a player who's never scored before. The other player scoring for us in this game was Nick Austin, the young Australian, a player who's really shone for us. It was a World Cup year. I believe he was in the World Cup squad. I alluded to, I think it was last episode, it might have been a few episodes ago, the fact that in the Australia squad, Paul Smith was not in the team and he hasn't been getting international caps, and I was really confused as to why that wasn't happening. I think he has actually been reintroduced to the team, but I found the root of the problem, and the root of the problem is the fact that, as you can see here, the Australia national team play a 4-3-1-2. Now, I don't know why you wouldn't play with wide men when you've got one of the best wide men in world football, and I'm not even exaggerating there. Like, he has been in the team of the year. Like, what? I don't understand why the manager wouldn't play a formation that facilitates him. I don't know if that's a bug, if that's an AI issue, if it's just the fact that the Australia national team manager is terrible. But just so you guys are aware, that is why Paul Smith isn't playing. I felt a bit like Sherlock Holmes working out that was the cause. But anyway, we did win this game 3-1. It was fairly convincing in the end. You can see the stats were fairly 50-50 in the first leg. The reason I didn't live com this was because we have played Zagreb a lot in the past. And actually, can we look at past meetings? I'm not sure if we can. If I go to the Zagreb page, can I do it? I don't know. It's not often that you look for past results against a team. Is it here? I can't find it now. It's probably hidden away somewhere. It's one of those screens which I usually find for a shortcut. The bottom line is we have played Zagreb a number of times over the last few years and we've beaten them fairly convincingly. Anyway, you can see in the second leg we won 5-3 at home. Again, it was a pretty good performance. There wasn't ever much doubt in the result. You can see we were much better really in this leg than the other leg, and in the end we did go through 8-4 on aggregate. Helic getting 2 assists in this game. Pereira, who is a right midfielder, getting a goal. Nick Austin getting another 2. Mulu getting a goal off the bench. Of course, he is still at the club on loan for 1 more year. So anyway, that's that. In the Pepe Reyes Cup, we played Gibraltar Lions. We actually won 3-1. So that was a really good performance. And the reason I say that's a really good performance is because, well, we have a bit of a revelation here. Gibraltar Lions have done the unthinkable. And I'm delighted about this. I didn't even know they'd done it until I looked at the cup draw. They made it into the Champions League group stage. Now, they followed a similar route to us in a lot of ways. Of course, last year was their first ever year in the Europa League. This year, they kicked off their campaign. Have they won a game in the Champions League? What? Oh, it's a Wednesday kickoff for us, so I guess they played a day earlier. They beat Celtic. Okay, well, I was going to show you how they got there, but the fact they've beaten Celtic in the group stage is absolutely mental. You can see here they beat Dnipro, the Ukrainian team, if I'm not mistaken, 3-1, and then they actually went through against Bayer Leverkusen on away goals. And as I said, I didn't realise that they'd actually beaten Leverkusen until the draw was made for the Champions League, and I suddenly noticed that Gibraltar Lions' name was in the hat, which was a little bit of a bizarre sight. The reason I hadn't noticed is because they play in the Champions League best placed playoff, whereas we look here, we play in the Champions playoff, which is a slightly different thing, and they're listed differently on the fixtures. Either way, crazily good achievement for Gibraltar Lions. The fact they've won their first Champions League game, I can't quite believe that. Looking at their group, they've got Napoli, who knocked us out, of course, from the Europa League last year. They've also got Galatasaray and Celtic. That doesn't seem like an impossible group. I mean, famous last words, they'll probably finish bottom now with just 3 points, which they got in their first game. But to beat Celtic 1-0, no shame in that. Hopefully they can get a few more good results like that and continue to represent us well. Will be interesting to see what the effects of having 2 teams reach the group stage has, not only on our coefficient as a nation, but also on the league rep, because that's something definitely to keep an eye out on. I guess that explains what I was going to mention, actually, which was the fact that I thought it was a bug, but maybe it's not a bug. Maybe it's caused by everything that's happened this year. But when I was looking at the major clubs, Gibraltar Lions are listed ahead of us now. Now, I don't know if that means their reputation's actually surpassed us or the fact that we are tied on 2 stars. I'm 90% sure that actually means that they're considered a bigger club than us, which I'm not happy about. I'm looking to make amends for that. But to be fair to them, they have developed a really nice squad. I was looking through their team. Of course, they've got Anibal Perez, who's their key player, a player who we let them have out of kind of the goodness of our heart to hopefully help them out. He looks like he's done a good job for them. But if we just flick through their team, they're starting to build a solid little squad. Like, they've got a good goalkeeper here in Unal, who's on loan from Trabzonspor, the Turkish team who they're affiliated with, I believe. They've got Yatabari, who's also on loan from their affiliate. But if we look through their team, just flicking through, they're building an okay team. They've still got Bay, 23 years old now. Maybe he can improve a little bit more. They've got Faria here, who's a very good player in the air. And I don't know, it looks like they're starting to build a good team. They've got this guy here, Fernandez, looks like a fairly adequate striker. It looks like they've got some goal scorers in them, which is absolutely fantastic to see. They've, of course, got Gary Horst, who's another one of our former players. Not a player who I actually gave them as much as of a trophy player. I actually sold him to them because I didn't think we were going to get a lot out of him ourselves. But I'm glad to see he's kind of actually developed into a pretty good player, and perhaps I'm going to regret selling him because looking at him, it looks like he could have been a useful centre-back for us. But nevertheless, good to see him playing for Gibraltar Lions. They've got Israel here, who's another good striker. If we compare him to Tuzon, he actually looks like quite a similar player to Tuzon. Where are you, Tuzon? Where are you? You're at the top. There we go. If we compare him to Tuzon, yes, Tuzon's better, you know, marginally, pretty much in every department, but Tuzon is a 70-goal-a-year striker. The fact they've got a player called Israel who's almost as good as him, like, that is a sign of progress, and I'm kind of excited to see if they'll give us much competition in the league this year, because yes, their players aren't as good as ours, but they've got a team now that, well, as they've proven in Europe, has the capabilities to upset teams and perhaps cause a few shock results, and I think the quality they've actually got going forward is going to serve them quite well. Anyway, that's Gibraltar Lions. I feel like we've covered them more than our current squad. In terms of our team for the year, we've got a few injuries at the moment, but I wanted to show you guys what I consider to be our best team right now. You'll notice that I've numbered my players correctly based off how I think they'll feature in the first team this year, which is something I never normally do. I'll probably not do it for another 10 years now, so if you're someone who's obsessed with squad numbers, savour this moment. I've numbered my 4-4-2 formation correctly. I've even gone into detail with numbering all my reserve players according to what is considered the traditional role. So, for example, number 12 is the resourceful player, Jason Hall. That is how seriously I've taken the squad numbers this year. Either way, looking at what I consider to be our best team, you'll notice there are a few injuries, as I mentioned. We have Young in goal, the Swedish goalkeeper, really proved himself last year in some big games. A good quality player, delighted to still have him at the club. Still got 4 years left on his current deal, so happy about that. Did sign a new deal fairly recently. At left back we have Villalba. I believe his name is Vishalba or Vilshalba. I'm probably wrong there. I feel like someone's going to write that in the comments. As you guys know, I record ahead with my episodes. The reason I know this is because Dr. Benji has a player with the same last name who's Argentine, and someone told him how to say the name in his comment. So that's how I know it's Vishalba. I feel like because we've called him Villalba for so long in this save, and I feel like he's a bit like Alba, the Spanish left back, we're going to call him Villalba. You know, I'm sorry to my South American viewers who are probably going to be pulling their hair out about that, but it's how I roll, I'm sorry. Anyway, at left centre-back, we of course have Mustafa, the Egyptian towering beast. Looks like an absolutely fantastic player. Still improving as well, the 21-year-old. I'm curious to see how much more he can improve, because he's an absolutely ludicrously good player. His pace is always going to be a weakness of his, but he's actually covered it up fairly well. A player who, if we just look at how he's developed, really, he's developed nicely. Look at his pace, you know, it's not gone through the roof, but his pace started at 7, his acceleration started at 7. He's now got 10 acceleration and 11 pace. You know, he's improved as a player. His agility's improved as well. His agility's actually improved ridiculously. It's gone from 8 to 13. But yeah, you can see he's improved by being at the club, and it's kind of cool to see a player who, you know, started with okay stats, just really come out into his own, and I'll be curious to see over the next few years how well he can fare, because of course this is just a 4-year period. There's nothing more satisfying, I don't think, than just like looking at the graphs of players who have changed over the years. Like, there's something very, I want to say therapeutic, that's not the right word, but when you just scroll through them, it's when you get a player who's been at the club for 8 years, like Romero, for example. He's not been at the club for 8 years, but you can see like his development as a player, and it's when you get all the dots really close together. This is a very weird thing. Like, there's something about this that excites me, when each one of these dots represents a month and you get like a really long graph that's 9 years long, and you can really like plot out how a player's improved over the years. Either way, I'm getting off topic here. Let's get on to the next player in our best 11 for this year, or what is, at least at the start of the season, the team I consider to be our best 11. It's Frigier, the Spaniard, 27 years old. Very good player for us. He's actually very close to becoming eligible for Gibraltar. More on that very shortly on a few other players. You can see he's got about 1.5 years left to go. He actually signed for us in a January transfer window, so it's actually going to be about 15 months until he's eligible. So hopefully he will not declare for France and we could have him play for Gibraltar. At right back, of course, we have Graphite. Really came into his own last year, came through in January, got 14 assists in 10 games. Hopefully he can put in a similar level of performance this year. At left mid we go with Paul Smith, nothing too crazy going on there. Now with the new squad number of number 11, he looks like he's going to be a very good player for us, the Australian, and I say that like he's a new player. He feels like a new signing every time I see him, just because I keep thinking we're going to have to let him go every summer, and somehow we managed to keep hold of him. You'll notice his current deal lasts 5 years, in the process of negotiating a new deal with him, which is going to see him sign a new 5-year extension with an optional 3-year extension clause, which would take him all the way through to the age of 34. So basically, we'd have him locked down for the rest of his career. That would be absolutely fantastic if we can pull that off. Anyway, number 4, Ismail JJ, the more defensive of our two centre mids. Very good player, been at the club a number of years now. But age 25, still one of the best players at the club, I think. Perhaps a little bit underappreciated. You can see he's just been a constant in the team. He's never the standout performer, but he does the boring job, perhaps, of being that defensive midfielder. Alongside him, a familiar friend, Joe Bouchard, who you can see has actually declined a little bit as of late. The 26-year-old, now entering his 9th year, I believe, here at the Apex. Very excited to have him in the squad, of course. Right mid, we have Mraz. the Slovakian who we've signed from Liverpool. As I mentioned, the right mid position, it's a little bit of a problematic one. We have Razz here. We also have the player Pereira, who can also play there. But it is a position that long term I do think we need to sign a player for. Of course, we sold Christian Mendes, our right mid, for £35 million. I know someone's going to say you shouldn't have sold him without getting a replacement. I feel like when you get offered £35 million as a Gibraltarian club that has like a club value of £28 million, you don't say no to that money. So I've kind of perhaps exposed the squad to a little bit of a weakness for this year, but I'm sure we'll come for it. Hopefully some possible transfer target to merge in that position and we can add some quality with the money we have now. Anyway, up front we have Velik and ELMO. I think these two guys should be this way round. Here we have Helik, obviously the Polish titan up front. A new signing, a new addition. Hopefully he can do some work for us. Alongside him we are going to have ELMO. He's not red and furry. He's a goal scorer. I'm hoping he's going to do something for us, the Brazilian. Of course, joined us for a really cheap fee. His wages are a little bit of a concern, perhaps just because if he flops, we've got him on quite a lot of money for the next 3 years. That said, I'm very confident of him doing something for us. You can see he signed for Olimpia in Paraguay for £1.4 million. He's got a few goals every year. He's had a few problems, but I'm hoping, coming into Gibraltar, he's a player with quality, and I think he's got the capability to kind of display that in our games. Anyway, that's the starting 11 of what I consider to be our best team. On the bench, we have Juan Manuel Carvo, of course, on loan from Real Madrid. We still have the option to buy him for £7 million at any point during his loan spell. Whether or not we'll actually end up doing that, I'm not entirely sure just yet, but I do think he's a very good player for us, and he's a good, useful player to have in terms of the fact he can play both centre-mid and centre-back for us. We then have Jason Hall, who's currently out injured with strained stomach muscle. You can see he can play left back and right back. He's a good player for us, a very flexible player. Can also play right mid, which is kind of useful given our current circumstances in that position. Of course, he had that pretty serious injury last year, a torn calf muscle, which kept him out from basically March all the way through to July. Still really recovering from that, only been back in training for 2 months. It has hurt him quite a lot. Not the player he once was, but I'm hoping he can continue to improve. He's 22. He can't be far off being eligible for Gibraltar. In fact, he's not. He's got a year left. So assuming that he doesn't get picked up by the USA national team, could be another kind of player we get on board with the kind of project here in Gibraltar. Anyway, the next player we have, Thiago Taques. Taco, of course, the Brazilian. Joined us last year. Didn't have a massive impact at the squad, but he never came in to make an impact. He came in to be a competitor to JJ at the defensive mid role. It's a role he can do very, very well. Pleased that he's still happy at the club. The next player we have, Carlos Andres Mora, the Colombian. Again, a player who's been here a number of years. He's actually not far off being eligible for Gibraltar, assuming he doesn't get called up for Colombia. To be honest, I'd be surprised if that doesn't happen eventually because he's just that good. You'll notice we are now training him to play up front. I feel like he could be a very useful player for us in terms of being a player who we can play as a striker but can also very much slot into an attacking midfielder role or a centre attacking mid role, kind of in that centre mid area on attack. At 21 years old, plenty of time still to improve. You can see he's got 9 pros, 2 cons. The injury proneness never really affected him too much during his time at the club. He's not had loads of injuries since he came to us. And yeah, I'm hopeful that he can continue to develop into a very useful player for us. Anyway, the next player we have, Marcel Cabral, one of the 3 Musketeers we signed a few years ago now, the 20-year-old Argentine. Spent last year in the reserves with the removal of Howell from the squad going to Norwich. That left back, the left mid position, and particularly the kind of backup left mid position, is for all to play for. We've got 2 or 3 players capable of playing there. Cabral is one of them, perhaps the pick of the bunch. At 20 years old, the Argentine, a very good player. Hoping he can continue to improve and should get some opportunities in the first team this year. Anyway, the next player we have, Mulu, 29 years old. You guys know him by now, on loan from Atletico Madrid. Contract runs out at the end of the year. Might terminate it sooner, just depending on the kind of impact that Mosca has. Of course, just a reminder on Mosca, we signed him last year for a club record fee of £6.5 million, but we had agreed to loan him back to Vasco to the end of the Brazilian 2030 season. So in about 3 months' time, he will be coming to us. The 19-year-old, he's improved a lot while he's been at Vasco. He's got 15 goals in 30 this year. Looks like a natural-born goal scorer, and hopefully moving to us, he can continue that trend. Anyway, speaking of goal scorers, Nick Austin, a player who's got a lot of goals for us already in the Champions League this year. The Australian, a good player, 20 years old, lacks that kind of real killer instinct in front of goal. Although he's got 14 finishing, the fact that he still has the preferred move, looks for past rather than attempting to score, annoys the crap out of me. I've tried to make him forget it. He's not forgotten it. It's a little bit of an annoying problem to have, but we'll get over it as best we can. Nevertheless, still a very good striker for us. Next player we have Tuzon. I feel like we'll just roll through the entire squad. Feel free if you've got to this point just to skip forward if you don't want to know all this. I feel like at the start of the year, it's important just to let you guys know who's who and kind of what's going on at the club and what is on my mind. But here we have Tuzon. What a goal scorer this guy's been for us over the last 2 years. I think he will be surrendering that kind of goal scoring role this year, however. He's declined quite a lot as a footballer over the summer, desperately looking for a move. You can see he's declared for Gibraltar and he got a hat-trick on his kind of second game ever playing for the club, or for the nation. Playing against Luxembourg away from home, Tuzon with their hat-trick. I mean, it was going to happen. Unfortunately, couldn't do a lot in his initial debut against Bosnia and Herzegovina, but nevertheless, a great performance there against Luxembourg. Quite a memorable way, I guess, to announce himself onto the international stage. The 30-year-old, can't imagine 5 years ago he thought he'd have a chance to play international football, of course, being Spanish, but Gibraltar providing an opportunity for him to kind of prove himself on a continental stage, which is really awesome to see. Anyway, the next player we have, Alberto Romero, will be playing in goal for this game. Not an ideal situation for him to come in for our opening game of the group stage against Zenit, but with Young out injured, it falls on Romero's shoulders to really make up the numbers. The Gibraltarian, he's not a bad goalkeeper, but he's not a great goalkeeper. He certainly isn't a Champions League quality goalkeeper. He's been a solid little backup for us for some time. Perhaps need to look to maybe invest in the goalkeeper position in someone who perhaps is younger than Young and kind of can give him a little bit of competition for his place in the side, and a player who might be able to develop into that first team goalkeeper in the future. But for now, we do have Romero. We'll deal with that as we can. Leo Palmer, just a backup centre-back, really. It's a little bit boring him. He doesn't play much for us, but when he does, it's very much as a sub coming on. Unless we have a real injury crisis during the year, you won't see much of him. We then have Hernan Sanchez, a similar player at right back, really, to Palmer. He's a good player. We signed him with a lot of hope in his potential. He's really not improved a lot as a footballer, but the Ecuadorian, just a useful player to have in the right midfielder position, or right back position rather. Of course, the fact he can play at wing back is exceptionally useful too, and gives us a little bit of flexibility with him. Anyway, the next player we have Pereira, third choice or second choice really, right mid this year, 21 years old, the Uruguayan. He joined us last year for £2 million. Made a few appearances, not perhaps as many as you might expect, but he came in as a backup. He knew that was going to be his role, and when we called upon him, he did a job for us. Anyway, we then have Gennari here. Good player, 19 years old, Italian. Not a lot more to say about this guy. Still room to improve, and I'm expecting him to develop a little bit. Been a little bit underwhelming perhaps in his progress since he joined the club a year and a half ago now. But that said, game time will help him improve, and I'm hopeful still that we can get the most out of him. Anyway, just a few players left. Jason Meza, we've already talked about him, the Colombian striker, fifth choice striker for us, 19 years old, joined us for less than £2 million. Will get some game time eventually. When he does, hopefully he can make an impact for us. We then have Luis Salas, we've already talked about him as well, young Mexican, similar in lots of ways to Meza. We then have Cesar Fialos, the Ecuadorian. Already talked about him as well, of course. He joined us this year along with the other two guys we've just covered. Good left mid. Will probably kind of fight alongside Cabral for that spot behind Smith. Probably third choice left mid this year. Might get some time in the reserves. Last but not least, we've talked about him already, but Mosca joining us very soon. Looking forward to having him join us in January. And yeah, that is the squad for this year. That is what I consider to be our team, and this is what I consider to be our strongest team. So it's not changed too much really since last year. Really, the new additions up front in Helic and Elmo, perhaps the biggest change. Razz, of course, joining at right midfield, but the exception of that is very much the same team. Mendez's departures allow me to reinvest in a few areas, get some permanent players in positions up front, and hopefully they can serve us well today. Either way, with all that rambling out of the way, and we're 33 minutes into this episode, let's actually get into the match. Let's watch some football. We are going to be taking on Zenit. We're away from home, but we are going to stick, I think, with the 4-4-2 attack. In terms of the team for today's game, we've got a few injuries and a few kind of situations we need to address here. First and foremost is the fact that Young is out, so Romero is going to have to come in goal. We also need to take off Jason Hall, who's out injured for 1 to 6 days with his stomach muscle injury. And as a result, we're actually going to bring Hernan Sanchez in the right back. Elsewhere in the team, I'm contemplating starting Elmo on the bench just due to his lack of fitness. In fact, we'll do that. We'll bring Nick Austin into the side, I think. The Australian, a good player for us. Let's give him a chance. He's a very good kind of poacher. That is perhaps his best position in my opinion. I'm hoping he can make a good kind of impression, I guess, on the stage today. You can see he's already got 7 goals in 4 Champions League games, so he has been getting some goals for us when we've started him. And yeah, alongside Helic, hopefully these two guys can develop a little bit of a partnership and perhaps show a little bit more of what they were showing during the qualifying stages for us, which was a lot of assists for Helic and some good finishing by Austin. So yeah, let's actually get into today's game. It's taken a little while to get there. Season 16 kicks off now. We're taking on Zenit away from home, a team we've not actually played before. I don't remember playing away from home in Russia, so something a little bit new here. Not quite the same climate as perhaps we're used to in Gibraltar, where well, it's the summer all the time, isn't it? We absolutely love it in Gibraltar. Sunglasses on around the Christmas table. I don't know where I'm going with this. Essentially, I'm trying to say Gibraltar's really hot. That may or may not be true. Either way, we need to start off hot here. Zenit with a chance, though. Outright Coulon. Nice tackle by Villalba. Clears it away, but it's a disappointing clearance straight back to Zenit. And while they're going to recycle the ball and bring it forward, Coulon with a chance. Romero saves it. It was definitely going wide, so I'm not sure why he's felt a need to get a touch on it, but he has, and now the cross comes in, headed over by Rangel, and well, after a little bit of a nervy start, we live to fight another day. Now we have a chance. Frigier, back post from this corner. Can he find a man? Razz is there! And it was a good save in the end, to be fair, by the goalkeeper. A clear-cut chance, of course. Razz on loan from Liverpool with the option to buy him for £4 million at any time. A player who I brought in really as a makeshift kind of player to come in at right midfield, and if we like what he does, if we're impressed with him, we do have that option to buy him permanently. Either way, Smith giving away the ball really disappointingly there. However, we will recycle possession. Bouchard, Mraz, the new man on the block, whips it in. Smith is there. Let's go. 1-0 against Zenit. It's been an interesting start to the game. We've had significantly less possession, but two clear-cut chances have fallen our way. We've created opportunities when we have had the ball, and well, we make it 1-0 here. A beautiful little goal. Bouchard laying it up to Mraz. And the new man on the block, the man who I said, you know, if he proves himself, we've got that option to buy him. Not necessarily your first choice kind of right midfielder, and not necessarily a player who, when I said think of your ideal right midfielder, you'd think of simply because, well, he doesn't have a lot of pace. And I like pacey wide men. But no, he's proven that he can actually pick out a ball, and well, if you can do the James Milner role, you might be worth a punt in our team. Either way, disappointing set piece by Zenit. Can we now counter? Helic turns his man, holds up the ball nicely. Mraz threads through Austin. The Australian's through. Probably should finish. Smith with the rebound. He doesn't make it in. And again, Mraz picking out a beautiful pass there for Nick Austin. That was our third clear-cut chance of the game. Paul Smith perhaps should have done better with the rebound as well, but nevertheless, good opening, I guess, to this game. Pretty positive. Feyenoord and Juve are drawing 1-1 in their game. Lots of set pieces in this game, and well, there is going to be another one right now. JJ giving away a penalty from that cross that came in, and Graphite, he started a fight on the pitch. He's been given a yellow for arguing with the ref. Romero, the Gibraltarian, not our first choice keeper. Can he become a hero? Shot! He is a hero. He's just tipped it out. The number 13 between the sticks. He's not our first choice, but today he goes down in the history books for, well, what a save. What a save. And, well, can we score now? Make it 2-0 before the break, boys. Austin, Mraz, crosses it. Helic, not there. Edge of the box. JJ, hit it, my son. He hits it. The Ivorian gave away a penalty. He has been bailed out by his goalkeeper. And, well, he's gone up the other end and he's made an impact in a positive way there. Interesting ball in, cleared away. He doesn't get many goals, the Ivorian. It's a good crunching tackle there. He comes away with the ball and he just finishes it with, well, a deftly touch, really. Just guides it into the top left corner. A few men closing him down. Didn't hit it particularly hard. But 2-0. We've got to be pleased with how things are going in this game. That missed penalty, really a momentum shifter. And, well, for us to get that goal before half-time, it's going to make Zenit's heads drop, you'd think, at this point. It's going to take a good team talk from their manager to get them inspired in this game. Nevertheless, 2-0 up. Can we make something happen? Straight from kickoff, why not? Graphite on that booking for, well, having an argument with the ref. Let's not get sent off today if we can avoid it. Disappointing throw in there. Frigier, Bouchard. Why am I commentating this? This is the pointless highlight. Or is it? Austin, Mraz, cross it. Maybe Austin, Bouchard, hit it. I mean, is this a chance or not? Smith's there. It is a chance. Eat my words. 50 minutes into the second half. We've had 35% possession. It doesn't matter what you do when you have the ball. Well, it does. It doesn't matter how much possession you have with the ball, it's what you do with the ball. Does that make sense? What I'm trying to say is it's not how much you have, it's quality over... Right, we've got there. Quality over quantity. I feel like I've butchered that. Must admit, it is 1 in the morning, so brain is not quite at 100% full capacity there. But I'll tell you what is at 100% full capacity. Our team, we are performing out of our skin right now. 3-0. Paul Smith, 2 goals for him, the left midfielder. And yeah, showing what he is made of in this team. We have got a few players on bookings, which is a little bit concerning. I might take off a few of them if we go a goal down, you know, if we go 3-1. But with 60 minutes, oh, not 60 minutes left, but 60 minutes coming up to 60 minutes on the clock, with 35 minutes left, we have got, you know, some options where we can change the game quite significantly with our subs. And perhaps we'll do that. Helic, he's not had the best game. Let's take him off and let's give ELMO a chance to show us what he is made of in the team. Joe Bouchard also been a tiny bit underwhelming. I'm going to bring in Andres Mora for him. Just get some fresh legs in the midfield. Perhaps there's a debate to say I should change the defence, as we have got 3 bookings on our back 4. But no, we're going to stick with what we've got now. Hopefully we don't concede immediately after these changes, because at 3-1 it gets a little bit nervous. Romero, he's had a nightmare. It's been blocked and cleared somehow. What has just happened? I think the cross hit the post and then deflected out. And then I don't know what happened from there. It got to safety. That's what happened. Romero, I'm not sure what you were doing, but you've got a clean sheet still somehow. And well, with 15 minutes left and counting, we're 3-0 up in a game where there's been a lot of chances, and we've taken the ones that came our way. We do need to defend this set piece though. Crossing Mustafa, the 6'6" Egyptian, with the header away, but the ball will find its way back into the box. Villalba with the initial tackle. Ball in. Romero holds on to it this time. No nonsense. Can we counter now? I don't think that was the highlight. If it was, that was a really underwhelming highlight by Football Manager standards. Smith out on the left to Mraz. Fred through Austin. Finish that. It's 4-0. It is an embarrassment. Zenit have taken one hell of a beating here. What a start to the Champions League campaign. Smith with the ball inside. Mraz, first time pass. He has had a real impact out on the right hand side for us. And Austin with a cool, calm and collected finish. Not showing an ounce of inexperience, the 20-year-old Australian. Looking like he could be a very, very good player for us. And well, 4-0 up. We are having a party. We've got 1 sub left to make. Let's bring Taco on. Let's let him join the party. And to rub salt into the wound, we're going to play him at centre-back, even though he's a centre-mid. Because why not? Right, there we go. 4-0. What a performance that is. Fantastic start to the year. We've shut up a lot of people after that. Did go into a little bit of a waffly... not waffly rant, but a full-on kind of squad rundown at the start of this episode. But I feel like it was necessary just to give you guys an idea of where my mind was at. But we've more than made up for what was perhaps a little bit of a boring earlier section to the episode of listening to me talk in detail about everything isn't your thing. And we've got a vital win here, winning 4-0. Graphite, what happened? Oh, he's now perfected his ability to play right back. Oh, excellent. Well, that's a new role for him sorted. We get £1 million for winning the game. JJ with the man of the match award, despite giving away the penalty. And, well, look at that. 4-0, what a performance. What happened in the other group game? Juventus won. That's slightly predictable, but nevertheless, we're in a good position now. Next episode, we will be taking on Feyenoord and also Juventus in our next 2 games. Hopefully, I'll see you guys for that. Both games are at home, so hopefully we can, you know, this year turn the Space Park into a bit of a fortress. Either way, if you have enjoyed this video, smash the like button. If you've got any comments, leave them down below. Let me know what you made of the Mendes sale. Good bit of business, I think. Looking forward to reinvesting that money that we do have when the right opportunities present ourselves. I must admit, it's not like me to hold on to my money and not throw it when I have it. But I think in holding it, you know, the 30 million we have now, for the right opportunity to present itself is going to benefit us long term. Anyway, that is all from me, guys. Thank you for watching. As I already said, it is me, Jack, and I will talk to you guys in a bit. I'm out.